What's up, YouTube? MrLimeSC here, and today we have something crazy fun and exciting. It is Diablo 4 announcement, release, everything. We have the final class revealed, and we now have a date for Diablo 4, or a year, which is at least a date-ish. And beta is open, so a lot of really good things coming forward from the Diablo 4 front, which I think for a lot of us that were maybe disappointed by the Diablo Immortal news, maybe this will kind of bring us back into a little bit of hype and get us back on a hype train and all of this stuff. So without further ado, let's dive into all of this and get this bad boy started, because we got some stuff to watch here and see how it's going. So this released at the Xbox Bethesda reveal thingy.
I speak now to those who heed a darker call.
Oh, good. Eyo! So that's the reveal.
Those bold enough to cross the line of sin for deeper knowledge.
That's a cool reveal.
Who follow an unquenchable yearning, born of blood and bone.
Team Necro! There you go.
To unlock the forbidden secrets and foulest black rituals, calling forth life from death. Truly embrace this power, you must take it into the world. And you will be shunned, scorned, marked as a living sacrifice to this profane knowledge. You will be a priest of Rathma, a necromancer.
Yo.
And you will not confront the darkness alone. We are the speakers of the dead, and the dead have no mercy.
You gotta give it to Blizzard, man. They make cool videos. So 2023. Their cinematics are amazing. 2023 for that. Which is crazy, because we're halfway through 2022. I thought at this point, with no information, it was like not till 2024. So I guess first thing I'll say is that was pretty dang cool looking. I'm not going to lie. I did not expect the Necromancer to be the 5th character. I figured they had the summoning already from the Druids, and they were going to consider that as already there. And not bring in Necro. So really a lot of Diablo 2 classes right there, right? That's kind of, yeah, I feel like that's, I don't know. I don't think you can do without a Necro. I mean, they didn't have a Necro in D3, and then they brought it in with the expansion. I thought they might have brought in the Necro with an expansion. But no, 5th class. So I love it. I thought that was cool. I think that's a good character for it. Yeah, no monk or paladin or anything holy though.
Next generation of action RPG, melding monster slaying and loot collecting with a fully
realized... this is a gameplay showcase right here, and I haven't seen the full piece of this. I've just seen a couple like small parts here and there. some of it I do like, some I don't. So let's watch it through, and then I'll shut up and we'll watch it through, and then afterwards I'll like go through it again with some
Open
feedback.
world.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's gory and unnerving. It's creepy.
Diablo 4 is all about player choice.
It takes all of the pillars of a Diablo game and just expands them with all of the new features that people really love and appreciate in modern games. Whoever you see yourself being, you can create in Diablo 4.
It's important to include robust character customization because then I can play the fantasy that I want to play.
It allows you to switch around your playstyle as well.
Everything feels very powerful and fun.
One of the really cool things about having an open world is your journey that you take throughout Diablo 4 is your own. There's no linear path that you have to follow.
We've got almost 150 dungeons in the game.
There's all kinds of surprises as you're exploring.
Strongholds are an enemy territory that you need to reclaim.
You might have a space that begins as a hostile area, but after you've cleared it out,
The evil in this place has been cleansed.
it now becomes a friendly town.
Sometimes it's a new town, sometimes it's a new dungeon. There's a whole bunch of rewards that you get, and you have a real impact on the world as a result.
No, you can't leave us here. They might come back any moment.
Local events are really cool little story segments that happen within the open world.
You'll just be running through the world and then a local event will pop up and you can choose to participate in it or get a group together and just wail on these like giant world bosses.
These are events that take a lot of people and you really have to work together.
Being able to see all the players on your screen, collaborating, trying to take this big monster down, it's epic.
It's so easy to create a community. It makes Diablo more of a social experience.
We've got fully enabled crossplay.
If you have an Xbox and your buddy has a PC, you're going to be able to group up.
Or you could play couch co-op. 2 people on a couch can sit there and have a great experience.
We've created specific zones where players can engage in PvP.
If you go there, you can start swinging away at people. But you're also opening yourself up to being swung at.
I know what PvP is.
If you're like really, really good, the game actually marks you as like a champion on the map. You basically become a loot pinata and everyone wants to chase you down.
The last story mission is really the beginning of a whole different part of the journey.
Now you're set up for the end game, and that end game is rich with things to do that allow you to get more and more powerful.
Whether it's new items or new dungeons or new Paragon boards, every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
And it's something that we're going to support for years to come.
I'm really excited for folks to get their hands on Diablo 4.
Just to see millions of people really enjoying the different options.
Through the campaign,
local events,
couch co-op,
endgame,
PvP, it almost doesn't end.
And we are so close.
I think there's a lot of good actually in that, especially watching it through the second time. Oh, here's a blog post as well. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Let's go back to this first. There's some that I was like, meh. But I think, thematically, I think a lot of it really is great. and a lot of this. I do feel sometimes it's a little too gray overtoned, right? Like you can have a little bit more color while also still having darkness. So that's the one thing that I do feel like is sometimes it gets a little too foggy, right? I think the fogginess can be a little much. But I do think, a lot of the world and everything does look really beautiful. But that would be, I still have that slight thing, just contrast, a little more contrast I always like. But even like D2R doesn't have as good of contrast. So that's the thing. Character screen looks dope. Necro looks dope. I actually do really like the different like ways that you can I think these look really good. Like,
it's important to include robust.
Those are really cool.
Allows you to.
I do still have worry because when I was watching, I was trying to like look at each character playing and like this spell is cool. Like this is an interesting. That's kind of interesting.
Everything is very powerful and fun.
That's sick, being able to kick a mob off a cliff and then jump down and go in and shout. It looks like everything still has cooldowns, which is what I was trying to get at. Yeah, I mean, just look how much gray there is in this, right? Just a little bit more color and it'll be really good. I don't like that style of combat that they're going for, where it's the more D3-esque, where you kind of run through, or even World of Warcraft maybe a little bit, you run through just like all your cooldowns. Because to me, it really eliminates a lot of choice, and it makes it so you just have this like set style of spam. I have 5 skills, and one is 6 seconds, one is 15 seconds, one is 8, one is 3, one is 5, and there's just a very set rotation that I just run through. And so it's like you figure out what the rotation is, and that's all you do. And I just don't really like rotations because it feels like you're doing a lot, but at the same time, it really takes away so much because you're not actually getting to kind of decide what's best in every sort of position. And some people like rotations, and that's fine. You're allowed to like it. But it's like, and you can say, okay, Diablo 2 Endgame is just spamming one skill, and that can kind of be true in some ways. I think there's, some balance in between even all that, though, where it's like, hey, I dive in, I drop a blizzard, I do a couple statics, I teleport to the next spot, I drop a blizzard from there. So it's like you're at least having like static, teleport, blizzard differences. But now with the cooldowns completely removed in that game, you even have the option of like throwing a frozen orb in between it if you would like, or a fireball or something. And yeah, DTU is a lot more about positioning and stuff. But I just don't really like the rotations personally. I would rather games be designed where you have the option to use any of the skills, but they're all very situational. One is more of that close up, one is more of that AoE, one is that stunner, one is that freezer, one is all of whatever, and so you're kind of bouncing around depending where what you need in different combat situations. Anyways, but with cooldowns, I do feel like it does that. Open world is interesting. Open world multiplayer, unless maybe you can't get to multiplayer until you complete the open world. Is that how they're gonna do it? I'm curious how that actually is gonna play out. Maybe that's answered in the blog. I don't know, but open world is a complete change, so that'll be something new to try. I actually thought they would make Diablo 4 open world many years ago. That was my thought of what it was going to be.
almost 150.
Lots of dungeons and all this. I hope that there's enough difference and enough, I don't know. You know, I mean, like, once again, I can see this being good because I think of, like, Breath of the Wild had, you know, however many shrines, dungeons, and they were, you know, similar, but all of them were different in how you had to do them, and each one unlocked gave you a little bit more skill and whatever stuff, and you know, it was really cool. So I think there's potential for this to be really nice. I think there's also potential for it to, you know, be too repetitive. We'll have to see more from that stuff.
But you might have a space that begins as a hostile area.
That's kind of cool that this stuff changes.
The
world changes as you go.
local event.
I mean, this skill looks so
pop up and
cool.
You can choose to participate.
I'm not gonna
in
lie.
it. World bosses.
This world boss looks awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I actually really like this boss.
These are events that take a lot of people, and you really have to work together.
I mean, it's not that repetitive gameplay is bad. There's a lot of things that can be repetitive and be good. The problem is I feel like more often than not, it's not as fun. Like Diablo 2 hit it right on the money, but there's a lot of repetitiveness in games that I don't find fun. So it's hard to say, you know, like this is fun or not fun, you know, until you've played it. But I feel like more often than not, it can get too repetitive.
Being able to see all the players on your screen collaborating, trying
Yeah,
to take
this looks
monster
cool.
down.
I like this fight a lot. That's really awesome. I don't really like these cold skills that much. Like that frozen orb, I just there's still some stuff about a lot of these skills and the animations of the skills that I'm not like sold on. You know, like frozen orb doesn't look good. Blizzard looks okay, but not great.
We've got fully enabled cross.
Like, it's really hard for me to say what it is. But it doesn't feel like it has the same weight. It doesn't feel like it has the same impact. It doesn't feel like it has the same, you know. I don't know. A lot of the skills aren't doing it for me. Some are cool, but many of them, I mean, Blizzard looks a little better in there.
Or you could play couch co-op. Two people on a couch can sit there and have a great experience.
But many of the skills, I hate this blood skill right here. This blood wave, I do not like this look. Oh, yeah. That might be my least favorite skill.
Sit there and have a great experience.
It's like a fruit roll up. I don't know. I don't like the look. It's a weird, just like push a giant blood. And we saw earlier on or somewhere when he's like running through the dungeon. Where was it?
Player choice.
That it just like keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Like,
Takes all of the pillars of a Diablo game and
I just don't like that. Sending the fruit roll up down the hall, it obscures the enemies completely. I didn't like it.
Fully enabled crossplay.
If you have an
Fully enabled crossplay is cool. That's nice. It has the couch play, which is great.
Go there, you can start.
PvP areas is cool. Is that not a fruit roll-up? And like, how can you see anything under that? Where is anybody? I have no clue. It hides everything. Strawberry jam? I don't know.
basically become a loot pinata, and everyone wants to chase you down.
So I don't like that part.
There's
Endgame, they've got items, dungeons, Paragon boards. They showed us the Paragon board stuff before, and like you can kind of decide how you want to get to there, what your path is through it, and all of this stuff. I think we'll really have to just look and see how it ends up playing out. I'm totally interested in how Paragon boards work, though. I hope it's better than D3 for sure, but I'm very interested to see what it ends up like. I like the little like stun ability, and I don't mind that little above the head. I think that looks decent.
For years to come.
I'm really excited.
I think the horses are fun.
Through the campaign,
local events,
couch co-op,
endgame,
PvP. It almost doesn't end.
So I do think there's a lot. I think overall, there's a lot of cool stuff. Like, that's cool. That skill looks really sick. Like, that looks good, right? I mean, that looks so good. You want to talk about skills that look good. This is like the complete opposite of the jelly roll. So, yeah, I mean, that stuff I think still looking good. Something that wasn't shown at all in this video, items, inventory, itemization, any of that sort of pieces, which still does have the slight concern to me, because once again, my favorite part of Diablo is the itemization, and I've still through those blog updates, I've still had concern about where itemization does land up, where the loot ends up. Are we just going to have these legendary, unique things that just are, you just fill all your slots with a legendary that has, that one roll on it that's special? Because legendaries are just rares with a legendary affix or something like that. And then you can transfer the legendary affix to like another legendary, or I forget exactly how they said it, but I wasn't quite into the way that they were doing it exactly before. And so it still worries me that we'll end up with like just all legendary items, and it's just not going to be a fun itemization again. But still stuff to be done there. D4 is coming out as a full-price game built strictly for PC console audiences, not mobile. This game is huge, and there will be tons of content after launch for all players. Paid content is built around optional cosmetic items and eventually full expansions. We'll be sharing more info soon. So it does not look like they are putting any pay-to-win pieces in. This isn't a guarantee from me, but it seems like they're very much trying to come out and say not pay-to-win. After Immortal, this seems necessary to say, but is it how it'll all be? Who knows? I can't say. But I would imagine with the PC console audience specifically and everything like that it will not have pay-to-win buying power features. I mean, they've said not buying power at all, which is something that they did not say with Immortal. They just said the gear won't have the power, whatever. So we'll see. This is it right there. And let's...
Pearson and Joe Shelley from Blizzard.
Perfect.
Talk about Diablo
Let's watch
4.
this talk.
Great. So Diablo 4 is being described as the next evolution of the action RPG. What would you guys say Diablo 4 is doing that is pushing the action RPG genre forward?
Cut the music.
It's a huge game, and there's lots of innovation. It's the first time we've had such a huge shared open world, from players campaign through the world to defeat Lilith to over 100, nearly 150. In fact, there's so many dungeons it's hard to keep track, honestly.
Yeah, I think for me too, beyond the sort of the shared open world aspect of it, is just one of the big design pillars. Like Joe as game director is really pushing this vision around player choice. You know, and the idea that not only can you, previous Diablo games, you were the barbarian, and now you can be any barbarian. You can create your own backstory in the sense that you have your own customization, the depth of skill choices that you have. It's a non-linear story, so you can play it out of order. It's an open world that you can explore any way you want to. You can choose to play PvE and PvP. You can choose to play alone or with others. And so everything we're doing is really focused on choice. I think that's something that really pushes the genre forward.
Speaking of the barbarian, you just revealed the Necromancer. So what made you guys decide to revisit this class and make it a character that people get to play right out of the gate? Because Necromancer is typically a character that has been introduced in expansions.
The Necromancer is a class that works so well with the Diablo gameplay. And when we're approaching Diablo 4, we really wanted to make it a combination of all the experiences that have come before, whether it's the returning to darkness that we saw in Diablo 1, a lot of the really crunchy mechanics that you could get into in Diablo 2, and our revised Paragon system, which is Captain Diablo 4, is a great example of that. To the really frenetic and faster-paced action combat of Diablo 3. We've made innovations across the board, but when we're looking at the classes, we wanted to make sure that we were hitting those classes that players have loved throughout the franchise and always want to experience. And Necromancer is front and center.
Yeah, and it really speaks to that idea of the return to darkness that Diablo 4 represents, that idea of the tone of D1, as Joe just talked about, that idea of working with the occult and dark magic and summoning the undead, and so it really leans into that feeling of it. And it is such a favorite. It's personally my favorite, and so I'm excited to be able to get, and not only
the
is
bear, look
the
at
Necromancer
him.
You kind of know and love.
He has a
from the previous
fencing
games,
response.
but it's actually quite a bit different, and so those differences are what makes it really exciting for D4.
Well, let's jump into those differences, because there's been different variations of the Necromancer all throughout the history of Diablo from 2, 3, and Diablo Immortal. What would you say are the main differences of the Necromancer class in Diablo 4?
When we talk about player choice, which is so important to Diablo 4, one of the things that we really wanted to do is introduce a unique class mechanic for each of our 5 classes, so that the experience of playing one class is totally different from the experience of playing another class. And the mechanic for the Necromancer is the Book of the Dead, which allows you unprecedented control over your army. You can configure your skeleton minions to be all kinds of different skirmishers, to mages, even skeleton priests, and you can configure your golem similarly with the Iron Golem making a return.
Yeah, and it really allows for that notion, because that's one of the things when you play in the past is like, oh, I can have minions, but my control over them has been somewhat limited, and now you can have skeletal warriors, and there's up to 3 different kinds. You can have skeletal mages, and there's 3 different kinds. You have a different golem, there's 3 different kinds.
Hold up, what?
But my control over them has been
look at
somewhat
this.
limited, and now
Character, Book of the Dead abilities.
you can have skeletal.
So you choose what kinds of warriors you have. I do not like the UI. I mean, I'm assuming this is all like just gonna be, just placeholders there. I still just don't like the text, man. The font is just... It's too much like something I would have in a PowerPoint at a corporate job. But, hopefully they change that. So here is interesting, because you're like choosing...
warriors, and there's up to...
Durable shield bearers of 15 current life. Every 10 seconds, your skeleton bearers negate the next instance of direct damage they would take. Increase the amount of thorns that defender warriors inherit from you. You gain 15% physical resistance, but can no longer raise skeletal warriors. Whoa.
3 different kinds. You can have skeletal mages, and there's 3 different kinds. You have a different golem, there's 3 different kinds.
I want to see that shadow.
Different kinds. You can have skeletal mages, and there's 3 different kinds. You have a different golem, and there's 3 different kinds.
Shields and freeze enemies. Upgrades. Each time your cold mage hits damage aimed at the primary attack, you gain 2 essence. Enemies who are frozen by your damage while frozen by your cold mage's primary attack are made vulnerable. You deal X 15% times 50. Why would it say X? Why not just like 15%? 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemy mages, but you can no longer raise scale to mages. So it seems like you can turn off all of the summons, and just gain damage if you want.
And so how you
whatnot.
choose your play style. Do I want to play aggressive? Do I play defensive? In fact, there's a way to sacrifice all your minions to just make yourself more powerful. So you can just be this sort of uber dark magic necromancer that he doesn't even summon anything, but is able to use blood magic to destroy everything on the battlefield.
Amazing. Oh my god. You touched upon it earlier,
First
but
sacrifice,
let's
though.
jump back to it. Tell us about character customizations. Will players have unrestricted options for character customization right from the start, or is it something that they can unlock new features that they can then adjust their characters while they're playing the game?
Yeah, so, in Diablo 4, we think of your class more as a vocation that any person could do, potentially. And we wanted anyone who's playing the game to be able to create a character that either represented themselves or represented who they wanted to be in the game, and then match and use that character to represent the class that they choose. So you can create really anyone you want to look like.
Yeah, I think that, we have a choice right now where there's a sort of a body type, because it fits well with sort of the armor and everything, the gear that you have. So like druids are proud dad bods kind of thing, which I completely associate with. But beyond that, like the ability to change the face and how you look and with the hair and your markings and your tattoos, and as we talked about, like the barbarian from say D3 was, okay, this white-haired barbarian that came from Mount Ariat, and it had its own thing, where now you can be completely different and make it your own, and that really helps with the immersion and the fantasy, that you're able to kind of lean into your role playing and what you want to be as a base or as a necromancer.
That's
So
definitely
Diablo 2
not
and
a
3
final
followed this
animation
act
there for
structure
that
was
fire.
pretty integral
That
to those
fire did
games.
not
And
look good.
In each act, you'd have like a home base that you could return to with town portals and the wilderness area that sprawled out and have different waypoints that took you to different spots. How does this change with the move to open world design?
Yeah, it took us a while to figure out how town portals should work, actually, in a big open world, but we figured it out.
So town portals are in Diablo 4?
They are, and they'll take you back to, you can go to waypoint to a particular place if you want to, or you can town portal to the nearest major city. Diablo 4 has a non-linear campaign so that you can do the story content in different pieces, which allows you to replay the campaign in a different order, which is fun. And the world is, the campaign takes you all over the world, but there's lots more world to discover after you finished it.
Yeah, that's part of the exploration, is finding all those waypoints and the ways that you can travel around. And so that's part of the exploration, is that you're with those 150 plus dungeons and with
I think
all
the skill
waypoints
tree
that
is
are out
still
there, all the local
kind of
events, all the
D3
world
like.
boss.
Well, the last time we saw it, it kind of spread out, but it wasn't. I don't know. It's hard to say what it exactly looks like.
So that's part of it. It's not just, oh, I'm on this path, this golden path through the story. There's a whole world out there for you to explore with very different biomes or environments with different monster families, and that's part of the fun. And it's actually one of the things that we
literally
just recently added as part of our testing, is this progression through a zone to know, have I found everything or not? And that really well, I'm kind of a completionist, and so that notion of like, did I find all the dungeons? Did I find all the waypoints? Is it really helps sort of incentivize you to go exploring.
You mentioned earlier the 150 or nearly 150 dungeons they have in this game. Are these similar to the dungeons of previous games with procedurally generated layouts and rewards, or are they something completely new and different?
They do have procedurally generated layouts. Monster placement's going to be different every time. You're going to get different rewards, but they're really grounded in a sense of place, and that means that you can do more planning about how you're going to tackle them, which really becomes important when you get to the end game. And you start to get into nightmare dungeons. In the nightmare dungeon system, you can
And it does get hard to see things in these. That still is kind of a worry.
get these keys, sigils, that allow you to upgrade a dungeon out in the world to become a nightmare dungeon, granted additional affixes and powers. And the powers are the effects on the dungeon are actually based on the keys. So you're going to get a lot of keys. You might find keys for dungeons that you think are less.
So a map.
Well suited to your build or play style, and you don't have to do those. So you have really, again, a lot of player choice there.
And one of the things I love is the new addition is like when you get into that end game too, and you're doing sort of
Yeah, dungeon paths are too narrow and linear. I agree with that. I really want the dungeons to have more variety to them and stuff. I mean, again, you know, I do go back to Diablo 2. You know, I feel like a lot of the dungeons range greatly in how they're built out. Sometimes they're narrow, big room, small room, tight doors, big, you know. Sometimes you're Arcane Sanctuary, mobsters can fly across the space. Sometimes you're in, you know, catacombs and it's a giant maze. Sometimes it's Maggot Lair and it's straight tiny little valley. You know, it's like everything has different, whereas this, a lot of it still does feel kind of how D3 feels there, where the dungeons are so just linear and have the, you know, the same spacing everywhere.
The Tree Whispers, this idea of do a dungeon, you
and
know,
the same kind of thing. There's no like good dead ends.
Dungeon
and all
is
this
sort of
whatever.
biased towards helmets, because I'm looking for a particular legendary helmet, and so there's certain dungeons you can go to that kind of, it changes all the time, so you can actually target what kind of loot you're after, and so that change really allows me, again, agency as a player to say, oh, I'm trying, what's really weak about my build right now are my gloves. So what dungeons are dropping gloves right now? And
Interesting. So they are doing it kind of similar there, where you're target farming a little more.
I can go and work on that dungeon.
Can you go into a little bit of detail about how the loot has changed?
Yeah, you know, as you said, loot is
here we go.
Really a key component of any Diablo game, right? And you know, we think that the legendary powers really bring a level of variability and sort of the ability for you know, all unlimited possibilities. Really.
Joe, you're killing me right now.
You can get a crazy legendary power, and then that really opens the door for you to think like, well, what could be out there? You know, it could be anything. And so in Diablo 4, we've decoupled the legendary power from the legendary item itself. You've still got unique items, which are making a return from Diablo 2, that really ground that this item has this legacy and this special power associated with. But for legendary items, the powers can roll on different items, and in fact, you can take the legendary power off of an item and apply it to another item. You can even upgrade a rare item to a legendary item through this. So you have a lot more ability to customize loadout in that way.
I don't like that take. I mean, that goes back to kind of how it was explained before and everything, but it's still... And again, I have to play it. But from just a thought process way, now every rare just gets upgraded to a legendary, and there's a specific legendary power, and you just find it on whatever item, you take it off and you apply it to that one, and everybody just runs around with the same legendaries, right? But my thought is there is potential in that it can, if there really truly is some great balance where things can be so spread, it can open up a lot of the idea, especially if that doesn't give a lot of power, but just gives kind of some personal choice. You know, it's like, what if a legendary power is like, you know, you cast one more Hydra. There's another legendary power that's like, your Hydras do 10% more damage. There's another legendary power that's like, you know, whenever you cast your Hydras, you get like 10 mana per kill. There's another one, right? It's like, if they're not like crazy strong, I could see them kind of being interesting, because then you're kind of bouncing these around and pushing around which ones you want and adjusting your build as such. Now it's like Frost Hydras or things like that. Where they get scary is if they're very, this is just like meteors do 200% damage and everybody needs this one if you're playing a meteor build, and so it just becomes the hard meta. So I think it can go in an okay way. Right? We'll see.
Yeah, like the skills are a foundation, right? Like when you're making your character, you use the skills are a template for what you want your build to be. Oh, I want to be a whirlwind barbarian, or I want to be a summoning necromancer. But it's really the legendary gear you get that helps you like refine that, because it ends up sort of overpowering it a little bit. And my example most recently is playing as an
And I do think this is also a problem in Diablo 2, where you get hard meta gear in certain spots. Diablo 2 has amazing itemization, but 1.10 really hurt it in some ways, because it brings in some of the, you have to have Enigma in this build. You have to have, you have to have Grief on this build. You have to have whatever, right? It's like Grief, Enigma, Infinity, Fortitude, whatever, right? They just kind of Spirit. They're so set in those spots that that's all you can run in those spots. And the cool thing is, there's still in some cases, a lot of cases, it's like Shaco isn't best in slot a lot of times, because there's awesome circlets and diadems and whatever things you can find, and crafted amulets and rings and crafted gloves and, rare boots. And there's still a lot of spaces where really cool items and things do win out. But for a lot of the kind of main pieces and those chest armors and some of the things, they do make it tough. And yeah, like Spirit murdered all staves and everything, and I mean, there's just so and same with like D3. D3 went into the set items, and so everything is just all set item. The part that I disliked even more in D3 is it went that way, but it also went to just like one stat. It was just like strength. I just need like 500 strength on this. And you can get the item that you want, but it rolled with int or whatever the heck. I don't remember all the stats. I haven't played in a while. And that's that, right? It's like, oh, well, it's not the one. I just want the one that gives me the big strength. So I am very scared of stat sticks still that are just, that are just, find the same item over and over until crit, crit, crit. Yeah, I mean, like, that stuff does scare me. And so I do have that same worry here. What do the legendaries look like? What do the items and affixes look like in all of this?
I had a pair of gloves drop that gave me an extra 2 mages, skeletal mages. So now I have this large number of mages behind me that are just destroying everything. And then you progress, and as you go up in level, that those pair of gloves becomes kind of weaker and weaker, because it's no longer at your level. And in the past,
I don't really like the idea of not at your level either. This is, again, a personal choice, but I don't always like when things have to be at your level. Like, all of your gear becomes worthless because you're level 50, and then you level up to 55, and it's like all of the level 50 gear now needs to be upgraded because you're 55. And it feels like a lot of games have this itemization style where it's just like all gear down below is trash the second that you get a higher level gear. WoW progression, exactly. That I always feel is really annoying. And it's like, why not let those +2 to mage gloves just be good gloves later on? Like, if you're running with mages, have the option. Make that be something you can think about, where you find some new gloves and it's like, ooh, these are a little bit higher defense and some more res, but I don't get +2 to mages on them. Like, allow there to be that trade-off and stuff. Don't just be like, well, now my damage is garbage and I whatever because these gloves have to go away because they're not, So I don't like the level gating, but so many games do it. So many games level gate your items. I don't understand. It's so annoying. That's why you can transfer legendary powers. It's still level gating with all this stuff, even if you transfer it up. I mean, it's still just, I don't know. I never liked that piece.
You'd have to sort of get rid of those gloves, lose those 2 mages, and go, okay, my build isn't what I wanted it to be anymore. Well, now in Diablo 4, you can go to the occultist, you can extract that power off those gloves, get another legendary at your level and put it onto that. And so then you can carry that in your build forward even longer. And you can actually sort of like put all these affixes or all these powers into your stash. So you're like, oh, I may not need it now, so I'll extract it and put it in my stash for later because maybe my build will change as I play. But there's a little bit of restriction. You can only pass it on once, so you can't just sort of keep that power for the entire time. But that ability to make a build and hold on to it for a little bit longer, and the fact that never before have you been able to take a yellow or what we call a rare item and turn it into a legendary by putting a legendary power into it, like that fundamentally changes how loot works.
That's so good to hear. One of the things that I think
it
really
just makes
stands
everything
out
have to be a
in
legendary, right?
The trailer that you guys just released are world bosses. Can you talk about what exactly goes into a world boss, how there are a bunch of different players that all populate in the same world? Just kind of go over what world bosses are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. World bosses are one of the most exciting things.
By the way, Blizzard, if you charge us to do any extraction on Legendary, you're dead to me. Don't you dare be like, that's not paying for power. Don't you dare, Blizzard.
That we've added to the open world. I mean, alongside strongholds where you get to actually transform the world.
Right.
But in a world boss, we pull the camera out farther so you can see other players in combat with the boss.
I do like the camera there.
Enormous bosses that, even though we pulled the camera out, fill the whole screen, and they're just wreaking havoc everywhere. You can see the treasure beast in the video we just saw, who's one of our 3 world bosses at launch. They appear in the world on the map, and players can congregate. They're notified that a world boss is going to show up. Players can congregate. You don't have to be explicitly grouped or in a party with anyone. You'll just see other players there, and you'll
wait. There's only 3 bosses.
Show up. Players can congregate. They're notified that a world boss is going to show up. Players can congregate. You don't have to be explicitly grouped or in a party with anyone. You'll just see other players there, and you'll all work together to take down this giant.
I know at launch, but still. I mean, why can't we release a full game at launch? I just feel like let's make more than 3. 3 is a pretty low number, right? I don't know. Maybe world bosses aren't like a big, important part of the game. So it's like they just kind of happen every now and then. It's just like a fun little thing. But, they're focusing elsewhere.
Monster.
Can you talk a little bit about how PvP is going to be different in Diablo 4 compared to previous titles?
Yeah, absolutely. So we knew that we wanted to bring PvP back in Diablo 4. There's so many players that have fond memories of getting players' ears in Diablo 2. And we wanted to recapture that experience. So when we looked at how to bring it into the shared open world of D4, we settled on an approach of defining some areas of the world that are these fields of hatred that are affected by Mephisto's influence. And when you go into one of these areas, we tell you that you are at risk of being attacked by other players. There are both players and monsters in these areas, so there's some opportunity to fight monsters or fight players, and you can have engagements where you're fighting some monsters and a player jumps you.
Those are just the standard template for the health globes that are going to drop.
A lot of really different organic things that can emerge there. So when you're in one of these areas, you can get access to this special currency, these shards of hatred that you can exchange for exclusive, cosmetic rewards that you can show off your victories. But in order to exchange them, you have to purify them first, and the purifying process takes place in this zone. Other people are notified that this is happening, and so you're in danger during that time. And if you're killed, you can lose your shards there. So there's a lot of interesting risk and reward dynamic.
And then finally, you touched upon it a little bit earlier with like the Paragon system and the Nightmare Dungeon.
I mean, I am happy for PvP. Again, wasn't Diablo 3 supposed to have PvP though? I'm still waiting to see. It had it and it got removed. Yeah. I am... my concern comes down to will they balance appropriately for it? I feel like that's always the piece, always how it goes, right? Path of Exile has PvP, but like, is it any fun? No, it's garbage because the game is not. It's built where you push a button and the whole screen blows up. So how do you PvP with that game? You know, whoever pushes their one button first. I mean, you know, it's that's kind of a nice thing that you can get with other games that have good PvP. A lot of times they have to slow it down a little bit. From the fighting that they showed right there, it did look a little slower, which I did appreciate. We'll see. We'll see how it kind of ends up being, but yeah, it's at least there for now. I am excited for that. I hope they can get the balancing of it right. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. I mean, D2 PvP isn't perfectly balanced, but you can set up some basic rules and have some decent dueling, you know.
But what is waiting people in the end game? Can you break down what's in store for people in the post game?
Yes. So we know that a Diablo game shouldn't end when you complete the campaign. And the end game is a really important thing. And you know, we wanted Diablo 4 to have end game available at launch.
I don't like it as much.
And so we've been working to make sure that the end game systems are robust and that there's a good variety of them. You know, Rod mentioned the Tree of Whispers, which sends you on missions all around the world. These missions show up on the map. You can complete these whispers for additional rewards. And those also give you access to the Nightmare Sigils that I mentioned earlier. Those will take you into Nightmare Dungeons, which
is kind of a take on it's sort of the Diablo 4 take on rifts, right? As people think about what the end game was for Diablo 3 and Greater Rifts, like Nightmare Dungeons are kind of a version of that, yes?
All right, well, Rod, Joe, thank you so much for your time. Diablo.
We'll have to see how that goes as well, you know. Rifts and bounties again, but again, it's, you know, how is it implemented? So we'll see. We'll see. I think there's still plenty of doubt, plenty of stuff we have to play. Beta is going to be there. Or at least like closed beta signups are open now. So, you know, I'm not a 10 out of 10 excited. But I'm not like an immortal excited. I don't think it's going to be a giant pay to win fest of whatever stuff. I'm in the middle. I think it has some good stuff. I think I still have concern about items and some of the balancing and play and this and that, right? What the end game will be like and all that. I'm excited to see how the open world plays, how the combat honestly doesn't look horrible to me. At least not in all the stuff I've seen. Now again, once I hit my max level and continue from there, does my power explode and everything, and it just turn into spammy rift that I don't enjoy? Maybe. There's still some of the stuff about like how many skills you can get and the cooldowns and all that I'm not a giant fan of. So I don't know. I'm probably like 6.9 out of 10 excited on it. I think that it has a chance. It has a chance. And I'm a Diablo fanboy, so I have a little bit of excitement just from that, and that probably pushes it up a little bit. I'd hope so, Young. So we'll see. We'll see how that piece ends up. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, we have the blog.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance. The Necromancer, blah, 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 blah. No singular way to play the game. Non-linear. Sharing their destiny in a non-linear way of their choosing. So it was the guy from Destiny that pushed this. I wonder how this will actually work. If there will be like a general story to still follow, or if it's really just going to be super open. You know, or if it's like a gimmick. And no singular way to traverse it. The world is vast, home to frigid mountains, yada, 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 yada. So I guess this means that all the zones are going to scale in level with you, which is also not something I super love, but is something that if you're going to do open world is necessary for like an ARPG, you know. But I personally prefer areas not scaling around because I like the idea of a zone being hard, coming back to it, and that zone being now easier. I guess it's not necessary. I'm just thinking with an RPG, you know, you have to kind of set them on somewhat of a path. Otherwise, the starting out, if they just go to the hard area, but then if they go there, they just have to turn around and go somewhere else. So, you know, burning out. Okay, so there's the strongholds. The main coastline, but each time you step foot in a dungeon, its layout and distribution of adversities will vary, keeping the challenge alive. I mean, if the layouts really start to vary and stuff, that would be very, very cool. I would love that. Local events to be completed solo or in a team name, and then there's the world bosses. Social systems. Let's see. We have rebuilt the party forming experience, so regardless of character levels or where you may be within a particular quest line, you can still band together. This is also our intended experience for players on different platforms looking to cleanse Sanctuary of Evil together. I don't know how that balance is going to work. Like, if I'm a level 40 and you're a level 5, is every place going to be level 40 when I go to it? And thus, you'll just get crushed, but you can, like, hang in the back? Is it going to try and average down? It'll scale you down? Okay. Scale to the average. Okay. Higher player scales down. Yeah, I don't know how much I like that piece either, but that's my personal preference. Maybe a lot of people like that. Who knows? The PvP zones. You can mark yourself hostile. Go fight. Yeah, it feels really bad in WoW. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but maybe some people are. Endgame, new, take Nightmare Dungeons. Tree of Whispers provides you with frequently cycling world objectives and bounties that reward you with legendary gear, experience, crafting materials, and more. I mean, honestly, I could see that being kind of fun. Sending you around the world. Paragon board unlocks hundreds of optional paths to further customize your hero's build. Where does it say no trading? I don't see that. If there's no trading, that would be super disappointing. It doesn't say trading anywhere either. I thought they were going to allow trading, but then they were just going to bind some items to character. Why does it matter? Because I love trading. Personally, I love open market full trading with nothing bound. I think it's a big part to have something like that. I never have liked bind on pickup. I think they're still deciding what can be traded and what cannot. Adion, thank you. Just don't allow a place to like trade the cosmetics that you buy, because then now it becomes pay to win if you do that.
Join my army of the dead.
Llama wants Real World Market to come back. He's still trying to get that house fund going.
Hey man, gotta get that house fund. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Does trading goes pay to win? How does trading it? Because you could buy cosmetics and then trade those cosmetics for gold and gear and things. Right. So anything that you pay with money needs to be kept to your account. It always did, Chris. But that's my opinion. Again, you're allowed to think whatever you want to think about it. Cool. So that's the Diablo 4. Like I said, I'm interested.
No.
There's
Hello, gamers.
still a lot that is not shown here. You know, there's so much stuff. I'm working on storyboarding pieces and things for Llama RPG, and there's so many systems and stuff that have to be designed and thought through.
Moo.
And we haven't gotten to see a lot of that stuff. And so, you know, there's so many questions that we have. So we'll see. We'll see. MC White Noise, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Sun Bear. We'll see how it ends up. Woo-wee. I feel you, F to B. I feel you. Will there be a literal llama in D4? I hope somewhere. I hope somewhere, man. All right, let's say bye to YouTube. Oh, 71 months. Goodness, F2. Bye, YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe.